How to deal with a toxic relationship. Toxic relationships can be the most draining thing. It can make you feel like you're betraying yourself day after day and just make everything else you're experiencing tainted. I had experiences with toxic relationships myself. I knew this all too well. This is one of the things that changed my life. Have you heard of this saying? You can't say you don't have enough time. If it matters enough to you, you'll make time. See, that's the thing though. If you clearly don't matter enough to that person, why are you making time for them? If you don't matter to them, why are you showing that they matter to you by giving them your time and energy and hope? Honestly, you're still hoping that they will turn around and be better to you. So if you clearly don't matter to them, well, they shouldn't matter to you and they shouldn't get your time. You will not make time for them. We will get into it more deeply in this episode about my experiences, but I can say happily now that I don't really have toxic relationships. And that's because of that first mindset I said and what we'll go over soon. Essentially, I just have a lower tolerance for people. With so many cool, kind, nice people in the world who will care about me and love me for who I am, why should I waste my time on people who make it more effortful to be their friend? Like, they're not giving me joy, they're making my life harder. So why would I tolerate that? If you have a low tolerance, you are going to find yourself in greater relationships and life will just feel so much smoother and easier because relationships are truly the hallmark of a joyful, fulfilled life. I'm Amy. Welcome to your A+ life, where we explore mindsets that help us live our best lives and reach our potential. I've gotten so many questions from you in the comments. How do I deal with a toxic relationship? How do I set boundaries? What do I do if a friend is always competitive with me? Now, I know for those watching, you may not have the exact experience that I would talk about here. And I don't know what level of toxicity you're experiencing. If it's really bad, then feel free to seek out some help that's more professional than me. But I think I can speak to friendships, especially because I struggled with this so long. And I think a key part of that was my self-esteem and how I saw friendships at their core. Even though friendships will be the backdrop for today's discussion, the concepts I discuss can be extended and translated into all different kinds of relationships with different levels of toxicity as well. I know this because I've also experienced toxic romantic relationships, and I see that the overall mindsets and themes can really help with those situations too. In fact, what I discuss today can help you also prevent future toxic relationships and, better yet, help you make great, amazing friendships that bring light into your life and make your heart full. I'm hoping that by the end of this episode, you will feel so confident, so well equipped to take charge of your life and relationships. This is actually perfect timing because one of the toxic relationships I had, actually the biggest toxic relationship I had in my life, was with a childhood friend. And I recently got engaged, woo! And so if she's listening to my podcast, awkward, but no ill will. I'm just using this as an example to help my viewers, my lovely subscribers. Anyway, I'm wedding planning, which involves putting together a guest list. Typically, you want to invite your childhood friend, especially one who you've talked with about your wedding, but it's been creating a lot of internal conflict with me since we don't even keep in touch now, and I am struggling to balance our history growing up together and all the fun we had there with who I am now. I feel like I'm a completely different person. Plus, even though our childhood friendship had its ups and downs, I don't feel like right now we're necessarily in a big up, because every time I try to keep the connection going, she doesn't really act like she cares about how my life is going. So I'm debating on whether or not to invite her to my wedding. I will reveal at the end of this podcast episode what decision I am 98% sure about making. Also, one more thing for this introduction. Thank you so much for 20K subscribers, and I have a special announcement to make. This podcast is now finally on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You have requested this so many times, and I finally made it happen. Thank you for your patience. Please help me out if I've helped you in any way by leaving a 5-star rating on my podcast. You can go rate it in Spotify. If you want to rate it anything other than 5 stars, then I would appreciate that before you do that, you email or comment on my channel why I could be doing better. And that will be extremely helpful to me, so, I can keep growing, because we're always growing out here. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. Okay. So many little pieces of context to add to the beginning before we dive in to the deep end. First of all, when dealing with a toxic relationship, I think it's important to first figure out whether it's truly a toxic relationship that's more on the other person, or whether the toxic relationship is all in your head. See, the reason is because I acknowledge that when I was younger, I would be in my head so much, overthinking every little thing that happens, staying up late at night, being like, why did they act like this to me? It seems like they don't like me. Oh, that was so embarrassing. But with maturity, I realized that most of those problems were simply in my head. So in terms of a toxic relationship, evaluate whether you are being the best friend you could be in this situation. Like, are you giving what you would like to receive? Because if you are being the friend you would want to have and they are not reciprocating, that's on them. Because reciprocation is a natural human desire. People should want to reciprocate and make each other feel better. So if they don't do that, then that's something to question about their values. I found it important to take a step back and think whether it's all in my head, because sometimes I would feel like friends are being competitive with me. But then when I talk it out with my sister, I realize, hey, actually, maybe I'm the one being competitive with them. Maybe I'm just comparing myself when they did not have any ill intentions by telling me some new accomplishment or things like that. To guarantee that it's not all in your head, if you don't like something that your friend is doing, talk it out with them. It's scary to be confrontational, but discussions and open, transparent communication are things that make a relationship stronger. So if you feel like this relationship is worth holding on to in the first place, it's always worth to be honest with them. I have been saying friends, but this episode really applies to any kinds of relationships. It's hard to say people you have a relationship with, so I'm just gonna say friends. If you feel like it's too hard to talk it out with them, then I say you can indirectly figure out whether they're capable of doing better by testing them. For example, if you feel like you always help your friend and they don't help you and they don't care enough about you, come up with a way to test them. Go up to them one day and say, hey, I have this big project that I'm really struggling with. Can you help me with XYZ? If they genuinely express their desire to help you and are visibly thinking of ways to make it happen, then there you go. That's one test they passed where you don't have to be in your head anymore thinking, oh, do they really like helping me or do they care about me? If it's clear that your friend is making excuses and all up in their own world, not really even making an effort to care regardless of how busy they are, then perhaps you know that it's best to look for a friend who will help you. This is something I've tried myself in high school. I had a friend, not the childhood friend, let's call her Becky. So Becky was a quieter, more shy person than me, but I always thought that we were great friends, caring about each other, and I'm someone who really cares about reciprocation and people bringing each other up, making each other better and feel happier. So in high school, whenever we go somewhere and we're packing our stuff up from the locker, I would always wait for this friend to walk to class together. But I started feeling this discomfort because she would always leave without me and sometimes with other friends when I thought we were best friends, quote unquote. So one time at the lockers, I decided, I'm going to notice this instance to see whether she is truly unaware and will not change this. So next time when I was packing my stuff up still, she already finished and she just left without me. Without saying a single word, she left with a mutual friend. And I was kind of annoyed at this point because it's happened so many times, and this was just one of the instances she showed that I felt like the relationship was uneven. Maybe I sound kind of petty right now, but these are the examples that I remember in my head. I talked to her saying, hey, can you wait for me next time? Because I like how we always walk to class together. I wait for you. I think of you for this thing, so it would be great if you think of me too. Okay, so she heard it, and next time, the time after that, still didn't wait for me. So finally I was like, you know what? I have this other great friend who always waits for me and who always thinks of me for these things, not only just waiting for me when we're packing our stuff up, but also asks me how I'm doing. Just genuinely gives the vibe that we're in this together. And so I kind of cut off that friendship with Becky. And it was actually one of the best decisions I've made because I realized that you can't just be friends with someone simply because they're nice or you have a good time with them. Because I am a little more proactive. I like to really cheer my friends on and we're just rocking in life together. But Becky was a little more shy, passive, and that also came across in how she approached relationships. So we didn't vibe in two aspects. Number one, how we like our relationships. And not only that, but number two, how we approach life. Thus, after ending that best friend relationship with Becky, I actually became a lot more outgoing and broke out of my shell, making friends with so many other people and going to more exciting events like being a powder puff football player senior year. If something feels wrong and uncomfortable, even if it's not to the level of toxic, don't just ignore it. If something feels wrong, maybe there's something is wrong, and that's a great opportunity for you to make a positive change in your life. It's not like I was mean and cut off a relationship. I was still kind, but there's a difference between being kind and a people pleaser. There's a difference between being a genuine great person and letting other people walk all over you and do whatever they want, even when you ask them to please act differently. You can't change people. So if you feel more comfortable with a friend that is on your same wavelength of outgoing, of values, of passions, then don't be afraid to choose those friends. You don't have to be besties with everyone. Be kind to everyone, but you don't have to feel obligated to everyone. Learning from that experience in high school has helped me make way better relationships and have a happier, more successful life in college and after graduating. When I moved to New York, my friends are literally the best, coolest people. They make me so happy and energetic when I hang around them, simply because I choose where to put my energy into. When I meet people at an event and we vibe and I'm like, wow, we actually share the same values and passions, and you make me feel so great, you make me feel loved, then I know that's a sign to keep pouring into that. On the flip side, if someone makes you feel awful, then don't tolerate it. Have a low tolerance for people who make you feel bad, because you don't deserve to feel bad. I honestly feel like people might comment, wow, how soft is Amy? She doesn't like her friend just because she doesn't wait for her. But it's been a while. I can't remember all the details of why I felt bad when I was with Becky, but all that to say is every person is different, their relationships are different, so you have to evaluate on your end what makes you feel good in your situation and how can you make the life and relationships that you want. Relationships are so nuanced, so even if my examples are softer or stronger than what you experience, I hope that the overall takeaways and mindsets can still translate and help you in some way. There's no way I can fully understand someone else's relationship. I'm not a therapist either, so these are all, again, just inspiration to help you with your situation and to encourage you that at the end of the day, put yourself first. You are the most important person in your life. You are the single most important person in your life, so you have to act like it. The most important relationship you have in your life is with yourself. So put that before with other people, because I know that when I was in the toxic relationship with my childhood friend, especially when we were in our tweens, I would always feel so bad about myself. And that's an example of how an external relationship messes with your internal relationship with yourself. Speaking of that, and to make a more toxic example, with this childhood friend, I actually had the rockiest start of a relationship with her. Basically, when I moved to my new elementary school, my family and I attended this get-together, and that's where I met her. Let's call her Anna. Anna was the queen bee already, and we were the exact same age. I go to this get-together, and for some reason, she just didn't like me off the bat. She had this friend who was 2 years younger, but that friend would follow her like she's the god, you know? And there were water balloons at that event as well. I don't remember how this started. We're just kids, you know, just silly little kids. But she was not nice to me. So when throwing water balloons, I was aiming at her. And miraculously, to my utter surprise and delightment, a water balloon hit smack on her head. So she got upset, came over and scratched my arm. And that was the start of our childhood friendship. I don't remember how exactly. Maybe it was just kids being kids and being like, that was just a mistake. Oh, what a funny thing that happened. But our friendship became more normal after that, but it still wasn't 100% comfortable. There was always this feeling of competition, maybe because from the start, she saw me as someone lesser, or I don't know what's going on in her head. But essentially, as the years went on, she would say, "You're copying me," or when she had friends, she would be unwilling to introduce me to them. Not only that, but when we were on the basketball and volleyball teams together, she would go hang out with the cool kids and act like she didn't even know me barely, when our friendship was actually stronger because we would have family gatherings. We would have these get-togethers, and our parents were friends with each other, and we were friends with each other for a lot longer. So Anna just always made me feel very left out, lesser, uncool, nerdy, in very subtle ways that I can't really explain. It's just the way when you walk into volleyball practice and your childhood supposedly great friend is sitting with a group of the popular girls who you're intimidated by, and they're all laughing and they look at you and they continue laughing. It's just that feeling. And I don't want to give away too much details because it's like not that relevant. Maybe you already understand the toxicity, but yeah, even as we got older, I never felt like she was cheering me on for anything. And another thing was how this friend, Anna, she would always say, oh, yeah, I barely studied. Ha ha ha, I'm so bad at this or I'm so bad at that. When I'm the kind of person who tries hard. I want to proudly try hard. So by her saying like, oh, I barely tried, as if trying is uncool, that made me feel like I couldn't be myself. Anything I did, there was kind of this subconscious feeling in the back of my mind, like, oh, how would Anna perceive this? Is this cool to Anna? Would I still be able to keep Anna as my friend? One day, I just felt like I had enough, because that day, it was so blatant that whenever Anna was with her cooler friends, she would ignore me. So I was like, I am going to find the right friends. I know there are the right people out there who will give me the love that I want, and I will happily pour love back into them. That was a huge turning point for me to become my own person, develop my own unique style that I freaking loved, that I was so proud of. I just became unchained, essentially, because even though we weren't besties or great friends anymore, I was like, you know what, whatever, because you didn't treat me like that outwardly anyway. What really helped me, and that I give as advice to you, is identify your core values. I found this really great explanation online, so I'm just going to borrow it. What fundamental beliefs serve as your guiding principles? Sometimes this is referred to as your moral compass. With clear core values, there will be certain behaviors you won't tolerate in yourself or others. Knowing which behaviors you won't tolerate is the first step to feeling empowered when you're required to interact with a toxic person. Think of it as certainty to help offset the uncertainty toxic people throw your way. Anna always made me feel so unsure about myself. So what did I have to become sure of? Was what I believed in. I believed in treating everyone with kindness. In fact, just like Sirius Black says, if you want to see how a man really is, you look at how they treat their inferiors, not their equals. Me, I say better yet, you don't see anyone as inferior. So when I realized that Anna wasn't aligning with my values of work ethic, of treating people genuinely, of treating all people genuinely, it became a more certain decision to be like, hey, there's plenty of other people, I'm gonna step away. And how do I step away? It's gradually. You don't have to cut it off immediately, be like, hey, I don't like you. You can gradually spend time with other people, because we have this limited set of time for social interaction. So if you reallocate some of your time to new friends, other people, then you're naturally going to have less time and energy for that toxic person. It's very, very hard to ease out of a toxic relationship if you are solely decreasing the amount of social time overall, because that's when you start to feel lonely, and then you will feel the temptation to go back into that toxic relationship. It's like we have this certain capacity of love and human interaction we need to fill, so make sure that you're still hitting that threshold even if you're cutting some people out or sunsetting some people. That's how you set boundaries as well, to answer your question that some of you left in the comments. How do you set boundaries? Well, first of all, being vocal that you can't hang out with them this weekend. But don't say sorry. Say, I'm afraid that I can't hang out with you because XYZ. Don't say sorry, because you should not be sorry for putting yourself first. Get in the habit of that. Second of all, to set boundaries is more of a gradual way. So if you start hanging out with other people, like I said, they will begin to get the message. Even if it's not hanging out with other people, perhaps you can put your self-care on a Friday night first. You say that, hey, Friday night, that is my night where I'm going to read this great book. I'm going to put on a face mask, or I'm going to watch a movie with my family. If you commit to that thing, even if it's with yourself, that is still a commitment. That is still a commitment that people can't just take away from you. Just because it's a night you planned with yourself doesn't mean that someone else can step in and be like, hey, are you free Friday night? And you're like, actually, I am. No, you're not free, because you're hanging out with yourself. Overall, though, with sunsetting friends and setting boundaries, it's not worth to turn things ugly. You should never make things ugly or start drama or give people something to gossip about. Just last week, someone sent me a message that wasn't very respectful, and it was honestly kind of arrogant. I wanted to leave them on read, but instead I replied with a friendly message saying, haha, okay, thank you. You know, just because it doesn't take anything away from your pride to act friendly on the outside. Don't leave a paper trail is what I'm saying. You can eventually not talk to that disrespectful friend anymore, but you don't need to explicitly say, I'm not talking to you anymore, or leave them on read. This also is a good habit for when you grow up as well. Don't leave paper trails of anything that puts you in a bad light. I think we should always approach things with compassion and kindness, just in case that person who was bad to you is dealing with something in their own lives. Maybe they're insecure and that's why they're taking it out on you. Also, don't burn any bridges. You never know who might come back into your life and be able to help you with something, or they will do a complete 180 and become a greater person that you actually want to spend time with. If you burn a bridge with someone, then that person could potentially burn your other bridges with other people. You never know, but remember that you just don't have to walk on that bridge anymore if you don't want to. I will reveal my 98% certainty decision about the childhood friend as my wedding guest in a bit, but first I want to address this comment about a toxic relationship one of you is going through. They asked, I would like to ask for advice about a toxic relationship which you can't avoid. Essentially, their classmates are giving the commenter a lot of peer pressure, stress, bad feelings, emotional damage. Their classmates are being toxically competitive, getting A's in unfair ways, and then bragging about how they fooled everyone. The commenter tries to avoid them, but it's impossible sometimes because those classmates are in the commenter's class. And overall, the commenter is just stressed about how to deal with this for the rest of school because they're going to be together for the next few years. First of all, thank you so much for sharing your struggles, for pouring some of your heart out to me. I am so honored to be able to even discuss this with you all over the world, honestly, because this comment is from someone from the heart of Europe. So my response to this is, first of all, I'm really sorry that you had a toxic friendship or friendships. My competitiveness with a friend was not necessarily in academics, but I can imagine how you might feel. What I have to say is, when people achieve things in unfair ways, the only people that are cheating is themselves. I think that the world turns out to be quite fair. If you are a genuine and kind person, that will pay off in the end. You may not see it right now, but into the future, when you have that great job and fun relationships and people in your network who want to help you, they will not be the ones laughing. When people cheat the system and act so proud that they get A's by cheating, well, they probably didn't get the skills they need to be successful later in life outside of the bubble of academics. Dishonorable and honestly unattractive actions will catch up to them. I promise you that, because, sorry, the wind is going haywire. Now, a few years out of college, I am aware of the blessings I have in my life now. And I don't believe that's by luck. I believe it's by continuing to stick with my values. Those competitive classmates are trying to drag you down. But I can tell that from your positive attitude and how much you're trying to work on self-development, that you were meant to rise above them. Do not let temporary relationships in middle school and high school prevent you from having the future you could have. So to summarize the action items, be transparent with them. If they're reasonable people, they should stop bothering you and pestering you about what grades you got. If they aren't reasonable, perhaps you should cut ties in a quiet and peaceful way. Number 2 is just maintain that mindset I have. I know it can be really hard if there aren't other people to be friends with, but that's when you have to look within yourself and be like, I actually think it's better to have no friends than to have friends who drag me down from my best self. I can be alone for a couple years and find solace in family members, my dog, my sibling, and become the best, better me. And that far outweighs feeling obligated to stay in this situation with people who make me worse, who prevent me from reaching my potential. So this all comes full circle into the whole point of this podcast, Your A+ Life, is to always think about how you are working toward your A+ life. If a relationship doesn't serve you to help you reach your potential and live your best life, then bye, Felicia. Try everything you can first. Once you have honestly tried whatever you can, then seek out ways to cope with that instead. And always remember that a relationship doesn't define you. Just because someone is treating you badly doesn't mean you are unworthy. I always want you to remember that. External people cannot change the person you are inside. You have to be so certain and sure of yourself that you are doing the best you can, of being the best person you can be. And actually, in fact, that could be a great way to cope. In fact, that's something I use when I deal with people who are unkind to me. I'm thinking, you know what? I'm probably kinder than you, or something like that. You know, that kind of sounds like I'm trying to be better than them, but whatever helps you cope in that situation. It's like, if they're mean to you, be like, hey, you know what? I know that if it were me, I would stick to my values and maintain kindness. So I'm not going to let you get to me, because you are not someone I look up to. Do not let people who you wouldn't look up to bring you down. Their criticism doesn't mean much. Your opinion of yourself matters more. I think I am paraphrasing a lot of the same themes, but I think that's why podcasts are so valuable. It's something that you listen to and you really internalize. You let it absorb into your subconscious. Even if it's similar themes or concepts, the more you hear it in different forms and go like, yeah, I love that, the more you can automatically implement it. My final tip is just with social media. It's so easy to compare yourself. It's easy to keep people in your life simply through a screen with social media. So use that powerful mute button. You don't have to unfollow them and make them feel like you guys have beef. Just mute their posts so they don't infiltrate your mind. On to the decision for the wedding guests. There is a quote that I will never forget. My 6th grade science teacher told me this, and at the time I was like, bro, you kidding? That's nonsense. But now I think it's true. He said, all friendships are transactional. Whoa, okay. Let's back up. That sounds bad, right? But transactional doesn't have to mean like disingenuous transactional, like you only want things from them, right? What transactional means is that you give each other in a relationship something of value. And that could mean happiness. It can mean making you feel heard. Can mean comfort. Can mean having fun together. Not just what people might think of when they think of transactions. This quote stuck with me and is so powerful to help me inform my own decisions now, because I know that if I am not getting value from someone, I don't need to pour into them. And right now I feel this pressure and obligation to invite this childhood friend, which I honestly hate. Like, I would love to have a childhood friend that I can keep for the rest of my life. Like, isn't that just wonderful? Wouldn't it be great to have someone you grew up with and who understands your past awkward seasons of life to be there at your wedding when you are your most glowed up self, and to basically have your childhood dreams come true? Yeah, it's sad, but I think as of this current moment, it's not a relationship where it's really even, where it's being poured into. So things change. I don't think we should feel stuck on years and years of history. We shouldn't feel obligated to sacrifice some fraction of our present in the name of our past. In the name of our history, I wish my childhood friend Anna the best, but I think that in my gut, I'm saying I understand who I am now. I love my friends now. I will still love you as my childhood friend. But in this present moment, it doesn't make sense to invite you. That is my 98% certainty answer. I am having real-time conflict, showing this internal battle in this podcast. So thank you to my viewers who are along this journey with me. Let me know your opinion. I know you can't possibly understand every single thing about our relationship and the thoughts that came behind this decision, but I'd love to hear your perspective. I did hear that one of the biggest regrets brides have, though, is inviting someone out of pressure. Editing Amy here. This is real-time evidence of my internal conflict flipping back and forth. I was quite overconfident that day and I overestimated my certainty. So every time I say 98%, replace that with 80% certainty. I'm hoping it's a helpful perspective showing that I really don't have it all figured out yet, even though I give advice and thoughts using my past experiences. It's in the point of view as a friend to you, not like I'm a guru or anything. I don't have toxic relationships presently per se, but the past one is still haunting me, where I don't even know if that friend is even a part of my life anymore. Now it's like I am trauma dumping on this episode, sorry, but honestly, I would love to hear, what would you do in this situation? Let me know in the comments. Yeah, I mean, it's sad because I recently have been texting a few months ago and a few months prior to that, like, hey, do you want to catch up? But each time she like ignores that message or just like sends me other things, doesn't seem to want to catch up in any capacity, even when I invited her to New York City to stay on my couch. Just like I recommended you test people instead of assuming the worst, I did this texting and offering to catch up kind of as a test, because after being ignored a couple of times, I was like, okay, fine, I will still give you the benefit of the doubt. This is kind of hurting my pride at this point, but I will message once more And this will be the final final quote unquote, of whether you're someone worth trying for. And unfortunately, the test was failed, to say the least. It reminds me of that Taylor Swift song, I've been giving out chances every time and all you do is let me down. On the logical side of things, this wedding and the bonding of two people to be married is in this new chapter of my life through this journey, this recent journey. And she hasn't been with me along this journey in any capacity. This is what growing pains are, I suppose, when, especially if you're a childhood friend, high school, college, you can easily drift farther and farther apart, especially being in different states, in different worlds. And I can even say that the new friends I've made in New York City are probably going to be lasting a lot longer, and they've met Sean, my fiance, so it makes more sense. I've learned that time invested does not equate to quality. It's just like we have completely different lives now, so I'm just thinking out loud here. What if her coming just brings back those feelings of insufficiency? You can say that was some childhood trauma. It was many years, I think. And I will say that we have both matured, and it's not like it's petty or toxic now, but it just doesn't feel 100% ironed out, if that makes sense. It doesn't feel like I can 100% count on them to cheer me on and be happy for me. So how could I have someone who doesn't care be a part of my big day? Because at the end of the day, it is my big day, and I have grown up as a people pleaser, but not this time. This is my day. I'm not going to cater to other people's wishes. It's going to be a day where I will have my mind completely happy, bathing in the moment of love and friendship. A start of a beautiful new chapter of my life. This journey of life where inevitably some people will fall out of, but just like characters in a story, not everyone stays till the end with the protagonist. For the visual listeners, I have some additional thoughts, but I don't want to bore you. And I know this is a podcast, not a book. So the next part with mouse clicks are only some additional notes. Read them only if you're interested. But otherwise, you don't have to read them to understand the rest of this episode. Got a little bit deeper than the usual deep end we dive into. I'm spewing nonsense now. Oh, I have another announcement. I think I already thanked you for 20K. Woo! Thank you so much for all of you lovely people on the Your A+ Life podcast. I will be doing a special episode soon where I will gather your questions, and it will be like an opinion or advice column. So under this video, please comment whatever question you have, anything you'd like me to weigh in on. And if your question has been asked already, please like it so I can see the responses. Or you can reply to that comment being like, yeah, I want this question to be answered as well. You know what relationship I do love though? Ours. Aww. Look at us. Look at us. It's like that meme, if you know what I'm talking about. At the end of the day, what I talk about in these episodes are as much reminders to myself as they are advice for you. Inspiration, not prescriptive advice. So I'm telling myself, it's your life. You are in the driver's seat. While we have to live in harmony with those around us that share the same earth, we can design who gets to come into our life. Your A+ Life Spotify and Apple Podcasts links will be down below, so check them out. Please note 2 things. Number 1, episodes will still be released ahead of time on YouTube before going on other platforms. And number 2, there will still be some YouTube specific special episodes only available here. That's because some discussions I feel like are just better in full video format. So make sure to stay subscribed here and turn on the bell for notifications. Thank you so much for being here. You are the first people to come with me on this podcast journey. So I wanted to keep some special things available only to you, my YouTube family. Please remember to subscribe and leave me 5 stars on Spotify if you haven't already. Until next time, remember to leave your questions, and thank you so much. Peace.